What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Living in Arizona, and today we are going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of living in Arizona all across the state. So if you're excited about this video, crush up the likes, like the video. And also, this channel is growing pretty fast. I checked the data the other day. We've grown like 1,000 subscribers in the last month. So if you're new around here and you haven't introduced yourself, Linda G, she's already introduced herself. She says, as Jeff likes to say, crush up the likes. So Linda G, she comes in, she tunes in quite a bit. But if you're new around here, please drop a comment below introducing yourself and telling us where in Arizona you're thinking about living, or if you already live in Arizona, let us know where you live and maybe share your experience of living in Arizona with other people. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive in here and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of you guys have already heard this before, but because we have 1,000 new people that are following this channel, we're going to keep kind of being a little bit redundant while also interjecting new stuff as time goes by, but also kind of trying to keep it fresh also. So the good, let's start with the good, because when it comes to the bad, you know, it can be a little bit annoying and depressing to talk about it, but it's real. I mean, I'll just tell you real quick before I start with the good, I'll tell you an experience today that happened. So I know people who are new here, they're like, well, when do the snowbirds come back? I haven't really seen it. Well, out here in Santan Valley, man, I was at the grocery store today, and it was hands down more people are there right now than there were last year in the wintertime. And what I mean is, so we've got the snowbirds back, but it seems like there's more snowbirds now. And then there's also more people who are permanent residents here. So it was like absolutely a freaking zoo, like a human zoo. I mean, it was like Shibuya in Tokyo, crowded, like literally people bumping into each other's with carts in Fry's, and it's a Fry's mega store. So, I mean, that's one thing that I would say just kind of inspired this video. I was like, you know, it's not all great in Arizona, and that kind of experience kind of made me say, well, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you know, it's not all good, right? But here's the good. So we get the most sunshine in Arizona than any other state, really. They say Denver gets over 300 days of sunshine, but Phoenix and Yuma and some of these other cities, we get so much sunshine. I mean, you just look at the weather report right now, even here it is in November, you just see nothing but sunshine and blue skies on the 7-day. And it's been like that ever since I got back. I don't think I've even seen any clouds for probably since I've been back. So for about a month already, I haven't seen any clouds. It's just blue sky and sunshine every single day. Now, on the other side of that, that could be a bad thing, because that does get a little bit boring. Every once in a while, you want a storm that comes in. But we do get those monsoons, which is a good thing, right? I think monsoons are a good thing because it brings in a disruption to weather patterns where it's always so beautiful and sunny. I mean, I love the sunshine as much as the next guy, but every once in a while, I like a little rain or something to mix it up, right? Yeah, the snowbird invasion, Alyssa, is very true. Like I was saying earlier, if you're new to these live streams, introduce yourself, say something so we know, you know, that you're out there. Just kind of type something and say, hey, yo, this is Joe from Louisville or something like that. And we'll give you a shout out. But I see Perry DeMarco looking at the New River area. That's a good area. So another positive that we have is it's really affordable to buy a house, even still, but the housing market just keeps inflating. I was talking to my neighbors. I'll share a little bit of an experience while we're at it. But he said that this was just his assumption, and he's just one guy. Everyone's trying to predict. I mean, I was even watching the financial markets today. They're trying to predict that we're when the next bubble is going to pop or whatever. But he was saying that since he moved in 1 year ago, the value of their home has already increased by 10%. So we don't know how long the good housing market prices are going to last as far as a buyer's market, but it's pretty good to be a seller. It's a seller's market right now in Arizona, but it's also kind of a buyer's market too, because it's still so affordable compared to California or some like New York or wherever some of you guys are moving from. But if you're coming from, I don't know, Oklahoma, it's probably not as cheap, or Pennsylvania, it's not as cheap, right? But for the most part, it's affordable for a lot of people who are moving here. They think it's pretty affordable. There is a lot of jobs, but the downside to that is there's a lot of jobs, but they're not necessarily high paying jobs. You know, it's like $20 an hour or something like that, but it's not going to like get you over that $50,000. There's not a lot of jobs that are going to get you over that $100,000 a year mark, or even the jobs that get you over the $50,000 to $60,000 a year mark. I think in order to live pretty comfortable as a family in Arizona, you probably need to be making a combined income of $50,000 a year minimum. So if you can, and I don't know if, I mean, between two people, you should be able to get that. But if it's just a single person doing the work and the stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, whatever the case may be, it's going to be kind of tough, I guess, with that, because there is lots of jobs, but they're not really high-paying jobs. There is some industry that's moving out here. It's always like, that's another negative that I'm going to have to tap into here. They always talk about these big plans, but these big plans like the Bill Gates smart city out in the West Phoenix, they've been talking about that for a long time. I mean, in 2017, they first introduced the news of it. You haven't heard anything about it since then. That was 2 years ago, right? Then they have this thing called Dreamport Village. They teased us with it back in 2017, talked about it again in 2018 and 2019. Crickets. Still haven't heard anything. Every once in a while, it's like, how long does it take for these projects to go through? They've got some projects that are supposed to be going through in Gilbert, like the Strand and some of these other big projects, and these amusement parks that are supposed to be built out in Queen Creek. But a lot of them, you hear about them, but they don't build them. It's like, what's going on here? The one thing they will build is more houses and bring more people in, but they haven't really shown that they like to do entertainment things. And here's another thing that's, in my opinion, a negative. When they build things, they build it very cookie cutter. So they don't think outside the box. For example, Austin, Texas. They have this little area where, you ever seen those shipping containers? So they have this village that they kind of created out of shipping containers. And in there's cafes and bars, but it's like a whole street. And it's kind of fun because it's unique. So people go there because it's a bar scene, and it's like shipping containers, but it's like an outdoors environment. And they could do that here. They would need a little bit of shade, of course, but they don't do anything fun. It's always just cookie cutter. So it's always the same color houses, which is beige or like, terracotta. And then I think that people see that from the sky too, and they're like, hey, that's a very brown looking city. Do you guys ever try any other different colors? So I think that could be said as a little bit mundane. Okay. Now, another positive that I will say is, for the most part, I consider the people to be overall pretty happy. I've heard people say that they didn't think that people in Arizona are very happy, but in my opinion, the people in Arizona, in Phoenix, in Tucson also, I don't know, Tucson maybe not as happy-go-lucky as people in Phoenix. I think people in Phoenix are more happy and friendly than Tucson. You guys can agree or disagree with me, but yeah. 88 Yeet says bad drivers in Arizona. I'm going to mention that right there. So one of our commenters, 88 Yeet, he said there's bad drivers in Arizona, and it's been said, yeah, there's pretty crazy drivers. Like, you'll be okay, here's a case in point. You'll be going down I-10 from Phoenix to Tucson, and you got a semi going 90 miles an hour. Okay, you might be content with just going 75, but this semi feels like he's going like faster than 75, maybe not 90, but maybe 80. And then you got this big truck coming up behind him, just a regular old Dodge Dually or some, Ford or Chevy or whatever it is, Toyota. And he's coming up. He has no care or concern about you, and that he's just trying to get around both of you. And so you'll be like, kind of like, whoa, I'm going 75. Is this safe? And, that's like Arizona in between the big cities. You're on these high speed corridors going 80, 90 with crazy drivers who really have no compassion for anyone else on the road except for themselves. Oh, thank you to the 14 people who crushed up the likes, and there's 50 people watching. So we've got a pretty big live stream going. Charlie Heller, welcome to the live feed. We're here in Central Arizona. Yeah, and so thank you to the new people who are subscribers. Please let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. So Alyssa says Dreamport Village is done. They sold the land to someone else for development or something. Yeah, see, so they got everyone in Arizona all worked up and excited about this big, awesome opportunity to build like a Disneyland type resort in Casa Grande, and then it fell through. I mean, it's just, I've seen that time and again, and it's usually the politicians of that district who get everyone all worked up on their Facebook page saying, hey, great news, we're going to be bringing something awesome to the community, and then it fizzles out and it never gets done. I'm seeing that all over the city. Thank you, Michelle. All right, so we have great place to come home to. I think when you land in Phoenix at Sky Harbor, there's always a good feeling you get when you land at Sky Harbor, you get off the airplane. It's usually sunny wherever you're coming from. I just feel like Phoenix is a good place to come home to. So that's a positive for me. All right, so we're going to dive into a couple negatives now since we've kept it pretty positive for the most part. But there's no real public transportation. Everything is so heavily dependent on automobiles and freeways, and that's really frustrating. And it would be nice if we were to get some efficient public transport. There's countless cities in the Northeast that have shown that people will ride public transportation, but they say because there's so much urban sprawl and everything's so spread out in Phoenix that public transportation doesn't really work in a place like Phoenix. Everyone wants to take a car. But the thing is, yeah, if you're going to be making a train that only goes 35 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour like a tram, no one's going to ride that slow stuff for 30 miles. So it's like, build a high-speed court, build a high-speed train. People will ride it. So, and then they'll find a reason. Well, we don't have the money. Well, why don't you have the money? I mean, what you're telling me you can't build the project that's going to invest in the future of safety and the future of transportation in a city that's projected to grow to, the population of Arizona is projected to grow to 12 million. So it's an investment. Money does come. Money will be there. I mean, they've built, if it means they got to add a little bit of a sales tax for cigarettes or alcohol, then hey, if I'm going to smoke or if I'm going to do some THC, CBD, put it on that. I mean, whatever. Anyway, so it's also kind of barren. There's not a lot of greenery. Some people who move out here, they're like, oh man, where's the green trees? That's like a problem for people. They don't like how there's a lack of greenery. Although some communities do a really good job, especially out here in Gilbert and Queen Creek, where they've managed to plant trees and they grow after 10 to 15 years. They grow up. Even in these communities, they'll plant the trees and then you'll go into communities after 10 to 15 years. And it's actually pretty nice because the trees have grown up and it looks good. Another negative is in the summers, it does get excessive heat, sweltering hot, oven hot. It's pretty harsh. It's harsh for your plants. And then to grow things in Arizona, it also gets below freezing. So plants, like recently we had some plants like vines in my backyard that don't like cold weather. And we got into the 40s and they died. Just because it got into the low 40s, which I guess I shouldn't have had those plants, but I was like, it's a vine. I see vines all over the place. So some plants like cactuses also don't like dragon fruit. They don't like really cold weather. Heavily dependent on the real estate and construction market. So when the U.S. economy goes upside down, or when the U.S. economy hits a bubble and pops, because we are so dependent on construction and real estate, a lot of like all these real estate agents in Arizona and all these construction workers, what are they going to do when the market slows down? So then you're vulnerable to like depression and joblessness in a city like that. So we're very dependent on that one niche, which leads me to my other point that I mentioned earlier in this video. I know they're booming, but they need to build things where there's jobs. There needs to be this emphasis on like, not just construction and real estate jobs. There need to be creating and cultivating culture, humanities, and actual civics inside these cities, because when the thing goes upside down, not everyone's going to be buying a house or building something because things are going to stall out. 2007, 2008, all over again. You think I'm kidding? Ask any Arizona local. They'll tell you, hey, be on the lookout for this bubble pop, okay? Because when that happens, it's a big deal. Yes, Charles, you're right. They did approve the light rail expansion, but the thing is, Charles, you can answer the question. You might know better than me. How fast does that light rail go? So if you're taking the light rail from Mesa to downtown Phoenix, I mean, how long are you going to have to be on it? It would almost make sense to just hop on the freeway, go 65 miles an hour, and have no stops along the way, and it would be a lot faster. So it's not really an incentive. It just helps the homeless people get around, which is good, I guess. Homeless people got to get around. But as far as like the average everyday working person, majority of the people in Phoenix are working class. So maybe 5% of the population is homeless. So what about the other 95%? How do we get them to ride public transportation? Right now, the people who ride the public transportation are not the working class. And that should be the goal of the public transportation system, or ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, should be saying, what do the working class people want from the public transportation system? Because the only idea they have right now is, well, we've got 4-lane, 5-lane highways going in each direction. How can we widen that freeway even wider? Okay, so the plan is widen I-10. We're just going to keep widening highways. Why don't we try to take some of that pressure off with a public transportation solution that's going to work, and that's going to be rail. I mean, it could be buses, but people don't really care for buses because that's still stop and go anyway. Okay, and then so like I said, another negative that people find is snowbirds. They just it creates an imbalance, I think, in the environment, because you'll be going about your daily business, life will be good, and then all of a sudden everything just gets more congested, more traffic on the streets, more people in the stores. So it goes from like tolerable to intolerable. And that is a problem with snowbirds, and we keep getting more and more snowbirds. I'm not against snowbirds. I'm glad if I can understand why they want to move here. I'm just saying it creates an imbalance for the local people, because when they show up, there's so many of them, they just like disrupt the regular flow of traffic and the regular flow of life. It's like it's just like 10% volume of people, just 10 to 15% of people, population just rises. So that's kind of a stressful situation. You'll notice people get more stressed out when they're driving their cars. Road rage, right? We know about this. They'll be standing in line at the grocery store. It's a line that's curving around. They're looking people in the back of the line. They're talking to each other, saying, "What's going on? Why don't we have more registers?" And this is something that's always going to happen at every grocery store. But it's because that grocery store is used to its regular flow of traffic for the last 6 months. So there you go. Anyway, I'll open it up to some questions, and then we'll close out on that one. 32 people crushed up the likes. Like I said earlier, if you're new here, drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. We grew over 1,000 people last month, which was surprising when I saw that in the data. I was like, wow, we're growing pretty fast. Let's see. So Clay Donimus. Need to invest in rail lines, bus and or trolley lines, bike lanes, all good forms of transport that people will use. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's not just about rail or transportation. It's also about creating city centers. So areas where people common areas where people come together. And I know that everything's always going to be urban sprawl, but it's like, how do we get people to the common areas, and how do we make the common areas, like downtown areas, more interesting? Like downtown Gilbert, they're doing a good job. They've done that gentrification where they've taken the city, the old town historic area, and they've turned it into an entertainment area, but it's all bars and restaurants only. So now they need to take the next step in the mind and say, what else do people want to do besides eat and drink alcohol? Well, do they want to shop? What kind of shopping do they want to do? Do they have kids? What kind of things do kids like to do? What things do families like to do? So, they need to build hotels down there. This is just, we're saying that the best example of what's been done right is Gilbert, but we're saying that even then they still are behind the 8 ball. They're still not right there where people want it to be. The people of the community want it to be, or downtown Phoenix, or even Scottsdale. So you need hotels, maybe a water park, like a real water park, right? It's Arizona. Let's get some water up in here. They do have a splash pad, so that's really good. Yeah, Timmy Little says, yeah, you can eat and drink anywhere. And that's the point of these videos, because if we watch the local news, what are they going to talk about when it comes to Arizona? They're going to sweep all of these real everyday concerns that the masses have, the people have, about lifestyle and culture and civics and humanities and interacting with people in the communities. They're going to sweep it under the rug. They're not talking about that. They're talking about the crime, because that's all they like to talk about on the local news. It seems like every opening story. Coming to you live from 33rd Avenue in Glendale, where a mass shooting just happened. And it's like, okay. Like, that's why we, on these channels, most of the YouTubers, they don't typically try to talk about the negative stuff, because there's enough of that on regular news, right? Linda G says, maybe build good transit to downtown Gilbert since parking is limited. Maybe a park and ride mile or so away. Ideas like that are very good. And if you can get a movement behind it, which I think we're doing right here, is where we're talking about it. Some people are agreeing, some people are disagreeing. If we discover that more people are in agreement about it than they're in disagreement, we should probably consider taking it to a larger audience or a larger segment of the population and asking them. But it's all about the presentation, because if you present it in a certain way, the first thing that most of the locals in Arizona are going to say is no, because that's typically the way they present it. The way they present it is, no, don't raise my taxes. Well, it's, hey, so this is what we want as a community. Here's how we get there as a community. Here's what it's going to cost. But they just come out and they say, so we're going to do a new high-speed rail. Everyone's like, no, I don't want to pay for that with my tax dollars. But then when you explain it to them, they're like, yeah, actually, I don't like driving on the freeway because it is stop and go. And that does sound like a good idea, especially if it moves fast enough and it's more efficient than driving my car. So now it's their idea, they're in agreement, then they'll agree that it's something worth paying into. You know, you get what I'm saying? It's kind of like that. But out here, they don't like to do that. They like to just, hey, we're going to do a light rail expansion. Everyone's against it. And then when you start to explain it, the logic sets in and everyone's like, actually, yeah, I would like that. Scott Glick, Jeff, are you planning on leaving STV and headed somewhere in the valley with nightlife? Oh man, who have you been talking to? Have you been talking to my real estate agent? No, maybe. I mean, it just depends. I kind of like the prospects of Santan Valley and Queen Creek because it's so up and coming. I mean, but the thing is, I feel like they're really slow to bring humanities and culture to this area. They're more interested in just urban sprawl and going in all different directions. And it's kind of like, let's concentrate it a little bit. Let's get some city centers built in there. Let's get some civics and humanities built in between, so people have jobs, like jobs for your kids. So they're not just out, you know, doing drugs and partying and going out to desert parties and lighting the desert on fire. You know, let's think about that instead of just houses, houses, houses. Let's think about like a balance. I mean, seriously, that's where I'm at with this. You could tell I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, how about we get some humanities and culture involved in here? I mean, we all went to some level of education that says culture and humanities is healthy, right? I mean, I took that class in college, but they don't seem to like that out here. The builders or the city planners in Phoenix don't really put an emphasis on that because I don't think there's a lot of money in it. But they have in Gilbert, they have a couple parks like this Riparian. It's a really nice area. It's a place to walk around and get some serenity. And in a desert environment, I think they've done a pretty good job. So that's an example of something that's worked. But outside of parks, there's other things you can do, like city centers. I think the city centers. What does a city center, a healthy city center in 2020 look like? If we're taking a city center and we're building it the same way we did in 1980, I don't think that's efficient. That's looking back when we should be thinking about, okay, sure, that kind of stuff works. You build a water feature, you build a nice sushi restaurant, then across the way you got a Brazilian steakhouse, then over there you got a bar with outdoor seating and a lounge. Then you got a coffee shop for the people who like to do coffee. And in the center, you know, you've got like a common area with seating and shade and some other entertainment things that people like smoke pits for the winter or misters for the summer, stuff like that. But even thinking even more creatively, bringing in artists, people who think outside the box to get some of this stuff done. Scott Glick, I'm with you, man. Been here in Queen Creek since February. I dig it. It's a great place that's really up and coming. Nightlife, not far, but I hear you. I'm not in STV, little different out there. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the fringe of Santan Valley and Queen Creek, right? And there is the Queen Creek Marketplace, which is actually pretty nice. You know, you can go to Buffalo Wild Wings. The other day I went down to Santan Flats, which is a really nice place. You would think that some genius would have a light bulb go over his head and say, wow, Santan Flats is huge. It's big and they're sold out. That would say that there's a demand for places like this. Build more. So I don't know where the investors are or where the entrepreneurs are, but a place like Santan Flats completely sold out, duplicate it, build something else just like that, and also sell out. I think people don't go to Santan Flats because it is too crowded. When things are too crowded, people actually don't want to go there. Right next to it, can you build another one right next to it? Another like cool outdoor seating environment with, I don't know, maybe do a Mexican one and then maybe do, I don't know, a little China, who knows, right? Charles Heller, been here in AZ since 1986. AZ has changed a great deal and continues to change. It has changed. It has changed, but at the same time, I don't know. The apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. I mean, they still love their freeway systems. Citizen of the Year says, "Are there black widows everywhere?" No. I mean, I haven't seen any black widows recently. You know, a black widow's web because it spirals down into a hole. So I haven't seen any black widows. Is there good deals for 55 plus purchasing homes? What's the best 55 plus community in your opinion? Well, out in Chandler, they have Sun Lakes. Most people go to, there's RV parks in Mesa and stuff like that. If that's your budget, mobile home parks. And then there's Sun City. Sun City is probably the old school. There's Sun Lakes, Sun City Grand, and then Sun City. It just depends on your budget, but that's over in far west Phoenix, out by the White Tank Mountains. If you got big money, you go to Scottsdale. There's, maybe some stuff like that in DC Ranch, TPC Scottsdale, or Greyhawk area, even Troon. Seems like a lot of the people up there in Desert Mountain, Troon North, Legend Trails, they're, 55 plus, and they got big money. But if you want just like, what is that? All non-inclusive, Sun City Grand or Sun City West would probably be the best one. Idiot Yeet. Gilbert, Queen Creek, Chandler are safe cities. Yes, they are safe. Now, a lot of people, they would say something like, there's still crime in Gilbert. There's still crime in Chandler. It's that it's not as dangerous as everything else. So there you go. Elias says Casa Grande Water Park not going to be built. So far as we just heard, they said it's not going to go through. Thank you to the 43 people who crushed up the likes and all these comments that are coming in. I'm trying to read them all. How is living in a trailer in Arizona weather, though? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in a trailer in 115-degree temperatures in the summer. In the winter, sure, it's great. I mean, from October to May, it's pretty good. But from late May to September, I don't know if you'd want to be in a trailer in Arizona. I mean, it's just the way it is. Darren Kroc, he says, you don't want to live in a trailer. Citizen of the Year, are there a lot of accounting jobs? Yeah, I've one of my neighbor is an accountant. There is a lot of accountant jobs, actually. For any one of these major corporations, they all need accountants. Any referrals on long distance movers from New Jersey to Arizona? Ooh, I need to, I just saw I see moving trucks every day. I forgot the name of it. They usually have, man, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'll have to look into that. If anyone's got any information for Takesha on that one, please share that information. Do you know anything about the new Nike plant opening there or any manufacturing jobs in the area? No, I don't know about a new Nike plant being built. That's good. I'm actually reading Phil Knight's book. What is it called? I was actually reading it today. I started reading it. I'm already like halfway done with it because I do it on Audible. I just listen to it while I'm in my office. It's a good book. You should listen to it if you get a chance. It is called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So it's interesting you're talking about Nike because I'm reading his book right now. So what area has mildest summer heat areas in Arizona? Flagstaff. Yeah. Prescott, Sedona. Even Sedona right now, here in November, is 73 degrees last couple of days. I mean, in November, 73 degrees still. Sedona, mild summers. It gets hot, okay, but it's not going to be 110. Timmy Little, the official Nike store in Scottsdale closed. That should tell you something. Okay, there you go. Michelle says, we used a United for our move from Cali to Arizona. They were great. So she's recommending a United. We need more resources for the homeless. Yes, the homeless situation needs to get cleaned up all across America. I don't have the solution. I don't think. Well, I know I don't have a solution other than just like take some of these abandoned malls that have been closed down and try and turn them into productivity. A lot of what I think it is the people with money have just become very comfortable. And when they get to a level of comfort, they don't feel like they need to do more. So I was just looking at GDP and GNP for the United States. I was trying to see, how's the United States compared to the EU in terms of PPP and GDP, GNP. And actually, in terms of GDP, China is #1 in the world. You know, America's always so quick to say we got the strongest economy, but in some areas, actually, China has a stronger economy, and that's for product production value. China produces more than the United States. Granted, they have a lot more manpower and stuff, but you know, the United States, I think the first thing that popped in my mind is, yeah, because the work ethic in the United States is not what it was in the 50s and the 60s. Yeah. Even me, I've fallen victim to it because everything around us is kind of just slowing us down and dulling us down. It's like, watch your phones, watch your TVs, tune in to Fox News, tune in to CNN, get distracted by social media. And it just kind of like distracts us from being productive. And it's almost like our society is engineered and designed to slow us down and not be as productive. And I'm baffled by it because I'll go to China and I'm like, everyone here is productive. Like everyone in China is trying to hustle something. Actually, everyone in Asia is trying to hustle something. And they're passing us at lightning speed. It's like they're just because they're where they're at, they don't stop right there. They're just like, well, in 10 years, how far along is China going to be if we keep up at this pace? So we've got to have a real wake-up call here in the United States, I think, where people with the money either start spending it and putting it to good use for the economy and getting people jobs, young people in particular, college graduates who are buried in debt. They get off that money and spend it, or you know, they figure out I don't know. I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe they need to be taxed. I mean, I'm a capitalism kind of guy, but at this point, I mean, the productivity in the United States has got to change and it's got to move forward. We got to get more production out of this capitalism. So socialism, obviously, we get less production. It's like, if we get then everyone's comfortable, and then we're just kind of like really slow, even though China is supposedly a communism, but they're really, in my opinion, a capitalism. They call themselves the Chinese Republic of Communism, but they also have a capitalism branch. Arizona manipulates their numbers and everything. Stuff isn't what it seems in Arizona. Yeah, I mean, like the homelessness or even the job rates, we'll see. We don't know. Trickle-down economics does not work and never will. It's been proven. We need wealth redistribution. Yeah, there was a video I watched about an ethical billionaire. He wasn't advocating for socialism, just so you know, okay? What he was saying was that the Milton Friedman model of economics, which is where the shareholders benefit, it's outdated. You need shareholders and stakeholders. So shareholders are investors, right? People who are on Wall Street who are invested. Stakeholders are the people who work for the company. So if you work for Tesla and Tesla takes off, who makes the money? The CEO and the people who own the shares. What about the workers? They get taken for a little bit of a ride, but they're not guaranteed anything. But now in this more advanced logical, so Milton Friedman introduced the shareholder model. And, you know, that was the step one. Nothing against him. He was just the first introduction of it. Now we have to go to step two, which is taking care of the stakeholders, the people who work. And it sounds to a real radical, they'd be like, oh, that sounds like socialism. Well, it's like, well, no, actually, it's not socialism. It's saying if you work at the company and you're there for 20 years and you're working day in, day out, breaking your back and putting in the time, you should also be compensated just as much in some way as the people who are just, you know, gambling with stock notes, shares, okay, stock shares. That was a good, and this came from a billionaire. Anyways, it was pretty good to see. So we've got this guy we're going to have to remove, but we need to actually, there we go. Anyways, guys, so thanks for watching. Thanks to the 49 people who crushed up the likes, and we will see you guys next time. Lots of comments. We'll do another one. Ask me, come up with some video ideas, join our group, and we'll see you guys next time on this show.